Harold Nichols confessed to the rape and murder of a student at Chattanooga State University in 1988.
In a strong, clear voice, Harold Wayne Nichols began to tell the jury a little about himself. He cried as he described a difficult childhood, losing his mother when he was only 10 and spending some time in an orphanage.
The jury had reached its decision. The punishment was death. Harold Wayne Nichols pled guilty to first-degree felony murder and was sentenced by a jury to death. At the sentencing hearing, the jury found two aggravating circumstances. First, Nichols' 5 previous convictions for aggravated rape. Second, the fact that the murder occurred during the commission of a felony. The jury found that these aggravating circumstances outweighed any mitigating circumstances beyond a reasonable doubt and sentenced the defendant to death. It was 1990 in a Tennessee courtroom. 29-year-old Harold Wayne Nichols stood before a judge as the state sentenced him to die for the rape and murder of 25-year-old Karen Pulley.
This was a guy who has never shown mercy to any one of these victims. He's never shown sympathy, he's never shown compassion or concern. The only thing he's ever shown is selfishness, self-centeredness, and whatever Wayne wants, Wayne gets.
Harold Wayne Nichols awaits the electric chair for the 1988 brutal rape and murder of Karen Pulley. It's not the only crime that landed him behind bars.
Deputies started toward him, ready to lead him away. And then something happened no one expected. Karen's mother, Ann Pulley, stepped forward. She didn't ask to speak to the judge. She didn't turn to the cameras. She asked to speak to him. Minutes after hearing that her daughter's killer would be executed, she walked closer and quietly spoke to Nichols about faith, about salvation. A defense attorney who watched it happen would later say he felt she was trying, in her words, to save this boy's soul. Years later, Nichols' lawyers would call that moment a turning point for him. And by the time we reach the end of this story, you'll learn one unexpected fact about this man on death row, and one more detail you rarely see in death penalty cases. Because this isn't just the story of a man in a death row cell. On the night of September 30th, 1988, nothing in Karen Pulley's life suggested danger. She was 21, working, studying, sharing a house with roommates in the quiet Brainerd neighborhood of Chattanooga, Tennessee. Her friends remembered her as warm, responsible, the kind of person who left notes on the fridge and stayed up late finishing coursework. That night, her roommates were out. For a few rare hours, the entire house was hers. She didn't know someone was watching it, like a hunter watching prey. Harold Wayne Nichols wasn't wandering aimlessly that night. He picked houses where a woman was alone. He checked doors, windows, weak points. And when he reached Karen's house, he found what he was looking for. He slipped inside through the first floor. He wasn't there to learn who lived there. He was there to take what he came for. He moved through the rooms in silence, then found the staircase, and began to climb. At the top of those stairs was Karen's bedroom. What happened next lasted only minutes, but it split her life in two. Karen was in her room when a man she'd never seen stepped into the doorway. She had no time to scream, no one to run to, no one to hear her. Nichols grabbed what he could find, a wooden board from inside the house, something heavy enough to become a weapon. He beat her with it, more than once. Doctors would later describe her injuries in the dry language of medicine: severe head trauma, catastrophic damage. The kind of injuries the human body cannot recover from. Those blows turned a rape into a murder. When the attack ended, Karen was lying on the floor next to her bed, alive but barely conscious, unable to get up, unable to call out. Nichols looked at her, at the young woman who would not survive what he'd done, and he walked away. He went back down the same stairs, through the same rooms, into the quiet Tennessee night. Somewhere along the way, he got rid of the board and his clothes. From the outside, the house looked normal again. A dark window, a still porch, nothing unusual. Inside, on the floor of her own bedroom, a young woman was dying. Morning came like any other. One of Karen's roommates returned home, walked upstairs, and saw her on the floor, unconscious, barely breathing. She called 911. Paramedics rushed Karen to the hospital. Doctors fought to save her, but the injuries were too severe. Karen Pulley died soon after. In the official paperwork, it would be classified as rape and murder in a residential neighborhood. But for Chattanooga, and for the women living there, it was something else. The moment they realized a predator was moving through their city at night, stories started surfacing. A broken front door, a car door pulled open in the dark, a stranger inside a home that was supposed to be locked and safe. Different neighborhoods, different women, but the same shadow in the night. A man hunting for the moment a woman was alone. Inside the police department, detectives began lining up case files, but when they pushed those folders together, a pattern appeared. Detectives knew they weren't looking for a one-time offender. They were tracking a predator. January 5th, 1989, early morning. The phone rang in the East Ridge police station. An anonymous caller. No name, no details, just a sentence. Harold Wayne Nichols. He's the one doing the rapes. The name hadn't appeared in their investigation before. The officer typed it into the system and immediately saw a red flag. Nichols had a prior sexual assault case from 1984. Suddenly, everything lined up a little too well. They showed it to one of the women who had survived an attack. She looked at it for a few seconds and said it was him. That was all police needed. There was no dramatic chase, no late-night showdown. The official record is simple. On January 5th, 1989, Harold Wayne Nichols was taken into custody on suspicion of multiple rapes in the East Ridge area and brought to the station for questioning. But the real drama, the moment when the full scope of what he'd done finally came into view, happened the next day. January 6th, 1989. Interview room. Nichols sat across from detectives and began talking. He didn't deny the attacks. He didn't hesitate. He confessed. Calmly. Nichols didn't just confirm the attacks they asked about. He started naming others. Not one, not two. A chain. In the case files, most victims were reduced to initials. TR, ST, PG, PR. Their real names sealed to protect them.
My daughter-in-law was his second victim. Something needs to be done.
Both Hicks and Adams are vowing to fight until Nichols draws his last breath.
Until that's not a possibility anymore, you don't not be scared.
Evidence shows until Nichols' arrest in 1989, he would roam the streets of Chattanooga at night, searching for vulnerable women.
Not only for our family, but for the 14 or 15 other women family out there.
Eventually, detectives reached the question hovering over everything. What about the young woman in Brainerd? What about Karen Pulley? And in time, on tape and in a signed statement, Nichols placed himself exactly where the evidence had already pointed. Inside Karen's house, up the stairs, in her bedroom, that night. He admitted breaking in. He admitted raping her. He admitted beating her with a wooden board he found inside the home. And he admitted what he did after. When Harold Wayne Nichols went on trial for the rape and murder of Karen Pulley, there was no mystery left. He had confessed. Twice, on tape and in writing. The jury wasn't there to decide whether he did it. They were there to decide what his punishment should be. Life in prison or death. And the courtroom quickly split into two versions of the same man. A man who hunted women at night. A man who admitted he would have kept going if police hadn't stopped him. The picture was brutal and undeniable. But the defense had a different picture. A pastor from Nichols' childhood church. A soft-spoken man who said Harold was a polite kid, helpful, quiet. A boy who seemed gentle by nature. But the most emotional witness was his wife, Joanne. She called him a perfect gentleman, kind, mild-mannered. A man who worked late trying to keep their home together when everything else in life was falling apart. She told the jury she didn't believe he had killed Karen Pulley on purpose. and she didn't want the state to execute her husband. All of them were sincere. All of them were telling the truth of the man they knew. When Harold Wayne Nichols testified, he didn't describe a monster living inside him. Instead, he talked about himself as someone shaped, even broken, by childhood. A mother who died of breast cancer when he was 10. A father who sent him and his sister to an orphanage because he said he couldn't take care of them. Later, the army, jobs, marriage. A life that looked normal on the outside. But according to Nichols, something else was happening underneath. He said that before each attack, he felt overwhelmed by a strange, excited state, something he claimed took away his ability to resist. He said he never told anyone. The defense brought in psychologist Dr. Eric Engum. He gave Nichols a diagnosis: intermittent explosive disorder, a form of impulse control disorder rooted, he said, in early trauma. Dr. Engum described Nichols as someone who functioned well under strict rules, someone who was calm and compliant when surrounded by structure. But when there were no walls, no rules, no boundaries, Nichols chose violence. The psychologist didn't say Nichols didn't understand what he was doing. He didn't say Nichols couldn't control himself. Only this: in the absence of limits, Nichols created his own world, and in that world, he harmed women. But the moment that froze the courtroom didn't come from the psychologist. It came from Nichols himself. He told the jury plainly that if police hadn't arrested him in January 1989, he would have kept attacking women. No hesitation, no confusion, just a fact. He knew what he was doing. He knew he could continue, and he admitted he would have. That sentence carried more weight than any expert testimony. The prosecution reminded the jury what the Tennessee Supreme Court later wrote about this case. Justice Anderson said, "In this capital case, the defendant, Harold Wayne Nichols, pled guilty to first-degree felony murder and was sentenced by a jury to death." At the sentencing hearing, the jury found two aggravating circumstances. First, Nichols' 5 previous convictions for aggravated rape. Second, the fact that the murder occurred during the commission of a felony. The jury found that these aggravating circumstances outweighed any mitigating circumstances beyond a reasonable doubt and sentenced the defendant to death. Nichols later appealed his sentence, claiming there were errors in the sentencing phase. But after reviewing the record, we concluded that any such errors were harmless beyond a reasonable doubt and did not affect the jury's decision to impose death. Accordingly, we affirm the jury's sentence of death. In 1990, after the death sentence was handed down, Harold Wayne Nichols was transferred to Tennessee's death row. He arrived with almost nothing: his prison clothes, a few documents, and a Bible. The same Bible Karen Pulley's mother had given him in the courtroom after the verdict. He followed rules, kept to himself. The guards called him a cooperative inmate. But to the prison psychologist, it matched something else. Nichols functioned best inside strict walls. When others built the structure, he obeyed it. When there were no walls, he hunted. On death row, days blur. The world shrinks to a concrete cell, a steel door, and a narrow slot for meals. Years folded into years. Today, at 64 years old, he remains on death row at the Riverbend Maximum Security Institution in Nashville. His execution is scheduled for December 11, 2025, at 10 a.m. Because he refused to choose between the electric chair and lethal injection, Tennessee law made the choice for him: lethal injection.
Attorneys for death row inmate Harold Wayne Nichols are suing the state of Tennessee, accusing prison officials of violating the Public Records Act. The lawsuit claims the Department of Correction is refusing to release key documents about its execution protocol just weeks before Nichols has to choose how he'll die. His attorneys say the state is hiding behind a secrecy statute, even after witnesses reported signs of pain during recent executions using the drug pentobarbital. Nichols is scheduled to be executed on December 11th.
It's extremely important for the state to protect the identity of the entities who are supplying the lethal injection chemicals.
He has lived under a death sentence for more than 3 decades. And now a date has finally been set for him. But even as the clock moves closer to that December morning, Nichols' lawyers are fighting to keep him alive, not by arguing innocence, but by arguing something else, that the state should not kill him. But there was a problem: modern DNA testing. When the samples were finally tested with contemporary forensic methods, the answer was clear. The semen belonged to Harold Wayne Nichols. Knowing everything you know about Wayne Nichols today, what do you think his punishment should be? Should the death sentence stand? Should it be changed? Or should he be spared altogether? If it really comes down to an execution, would you choose the electric chair, lethal injection, or no execution at all? Drop your thoughts in the comments, but keep it respectful. There's a part of Harold Wayne Nichols' life that almost never appears in headlines. On death row, Nichols began making art. In handwritten notes, he says it helps him shine a light on issues: the cradle-to-prison pipeline, the death penalty, mass incarceration. But the art reveals something else: what a person imagines when the world they live in is made of steel and cinder block. What escape looks like when escape is impossible. Nichols hasn't seen real stars in more than 25 years. 2 art instructors photographed the night sky for him, the sky he remembered but could no longer witness, and he painted his own version: deep violet acrylics, thin silhouettes of trees, a sky he will never stand under again. In his note to the piece, he wrote, "Prison has taught me many things. One of them is the importance of small things, like the stars at night." For years, Nichols worked on a 2-man prison maintenance crew handling electrical repairs. One day, his supervisor, a Free World employee, grabbed a live wire and was nearly killed. When medical staff walked him out, shaking and stunned, Nichols remembered one detail. After almost dying from the shock, the thing he cared about most was that his glasses had broken. And then Nichols wrote, "Is it strange that a man sentenced to die in the electric chair works fixing electrical wiring?" One of his most unusual works is a small diorama, a painted prison door, a narrow vertical viewing slot, a meal slot below it. Inside, a collage of photographs of Nichols's family and friends. And in front of those photos, a tiny mirror. When you lean in to look inside, you don't see him, you see yourself. Another drawing of his is simple: a world without prisons. In his exhibition note, Nichols wrote, "No one here wants to see a monument to themselves, but I wanted to show people what the world could look like if my idea became real." His largest project was a collaboration with another death row inmate, Ron Cawthorn. From cardboard scraps, leftover paint, and trash collected in the recreation room, they built a 4x5-meter airplane. Along its sides, winding lines, like veins. On the nose, a skull. A music box motor connected to the propeller. Turn it, the blades spin, and the melody "Somewhere Out There" begins to play. A song about hope. Built by men the state intends to kill. The airplane was dismantled inside the prison, carried out piece by piece, and reassembled in a New York art gallery. Visitors walked around it, photographed it, studied it, not knowing that the men who made it may never see the sky again. So what do these works show? Are they evidence of transformation, reflection, regret, or simply the creativity of a man adapting to a life without freedom? Only one idea is clear. Prison didn't make Harold Wayne Nichols harmless. He was only harmless when someone else built the walls around him. But inside those walls, he built something too. Paintings, sculptures, small worlds, imagined skies. Tell me what you think in the comments. And if you want more stories told without sensationalism and without excuses, Subscribe and join us in the next episode.